another generation of leaders. I became the Asaba Massacre in 1991. And for a few years, we tried to celebrate or to remember this event. But to some extent, it was not easy to do it, mainly because the then government of Delta State did not want us to remember the occasion or to remind the world, Nigeria, of the tragedy that happened in Asaba. So we tried at all costs to celebrate the event, but to remember the event on a low key. But in 1995, General Gowon visited Asaba as part of his campaign, Nigeria Praise. In Asaba, he decided to pay, because it's a call to near the palace. So he was here. I reminded him about the massacre, what had happened to Asaba. He agreed, he owned up to the tragedy and apologized. I told him I accepted the apology. But I didn't think it was enough. That the tragedy of that enormity, that location where he would apologize to the Asaba people in public. He agreed, and we arranged a session in the stadium. And in the stadium, he also apologized, and Asaba people spoke and received that apology. Then I told him at the time that on behalf of the Asaba people, we accepted his apology. But we will never forget. I said, we will remember Biafran because of what harm done to the community, eliminating the generation of leaders. But with the apology, we wanted a compensation. And they asked me, what compensation do your people want? At that point, I remembered James Stuart Young. He's a poet, an Englishman who lived at Onitsha. And he was commenting on the decline of Asaba. And his words, Asaba, that little town across the Niger, once the home of letter writers and petitioners. But the letter writers are gone and the petitioners are no more. What was the meaning of that? The home of letter writers. Because Asaba people embraced education very early after the coming of the Europeans. And Asaba, though a small town, was known for producing the teachers and the civil servants that populated the government in those days. And they were petitioners because the Asaba people, they are usually very peaceful people. They love peace. They're not violent, but they don't tolerate injustice. So where there is injustice, they petition. That's why they're known as petition writers. So the writers and petitioners were no more. So I told the one that we wouldn't ask for much, that we only ask that the government, federal government compensate us by building a federal university in Asaba. That was our only demand. Some years later, the present government, the vice president was here, and I reminded him that this request has not been fulfilled. At that time, Gawan said, yes, I will support you in that demand. But you know, I was the head of state when the incident happened, but I'm no longer the head of state. So, as the present government, I will decide that I will support your demand. So I reminded the vice president about that demand, and he said he would think about it. So far, we have not received any response. But in any case, what I said at that time, that we will forgive, but we cannot forget. Not forgetting is one of the reasons why we're here today. But we don't want to remember only once a year. We want something that will remind us every day. And to remind us every day, we have decided that we should build a monument here in Asaba, where everybody can see, and anybody who is passing by will say, what is that monument for? And remembrance of what happened in 1967. We are ready to build that monument, and Asaba has provided us with a design. And soon, we hope to lay the foundation stone of that monument so that it will be built. So we'll continue to do our part. We're calling on the federal government to honor what a former head of state, he was head of state when the incident occurred, to honor that request. I know that the times are hard and money is difficult to get. So what I'm going to say today again is that if the federal government is ready to build that university, we will be able to assist by providing the funds for the foundation of that university. Because what that university will build in the tradition of Asaba, to continue to produce the scholars, the writers, and the petitioners of Nigeria, Asaba, who have stood up at all times for injustice against any community in this country. Thank you all for coming, and hope that we all together will continue to press the federal government to respond to that request. We're going to build our monument. We are going to provide the funds for every basic infrastructure. All we want is to give that university a name and to continue to support it. We thank you all for coming. May God bless you, and we'll continue to treasure your support to our demand, our request. It is very modest in comparison to the injury that the soldiers of the federal government have perpetrated on this town. And we thank you very much and pray and ask for your continued support. May God bless you all.
Thank you. agụnwanyị onihe ahaba ogene ụmụ ahaba igwe ọkpaloko ekene m unu ndị obi igwe enu ndị olinzele ogbeshi na abọnụ ndị odozi akụ ogbeshi na abọ Ezes of Ahaba, Ogbeoshis, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dr. Ndedemwaneri. I stand here on the shoulder of a giant to represent Ambassador Professor Joy Ogu, OFR, former President of the United Nations Security Council, former Nigerian Permanent Representative to the United Nations, and Nigeria's former Minister of Foreign Affairs. The title of her speech is Remembering the Heroes and Martyrs of the Asaba Massacre, Reshaping the Future. It is indeed my profound honor to represent to the call to this forum from the palace of the Asaba of Ahaba. My first words must be to thank both Chief Shok Ndokaeze, the Isamaje of Ahaba, and Chief Pat Ndede, the Ihono of Ahaba, for inviting me to deliver a brief message. As a daughter of this land, I want to state that I consider it a high duty and solemn responsibility. On the concept of message, I would like to share the reflection of Archbishop Fulton Sheen. He said, 3 elements conspire in the making of a message, namely the pulpit, the audience, and the truth. I believe that all 3 elements are present here today. The Asaga's palace constitutes not only the pulpit, but also the fulcrum of the value we hold and cherish in Asaba tradition and culture. The audience is not only the citizens of Asaba, but also all people of virtuous conscience who understand the searing pain of rejection and the frightening experience of annihilation. Regarding the truth, one can safely assert that in human conflicts, the first casualty is truth. We gather today to affirm the truth. Almost 54 years have passed since the defining event in Asaba history, a day of infamy, when over 1,000 innocent, defenseless civilians, men and boys, were exterminated in a hail of bullets, under the ruse of a welcome reception. In its aftermath, it left echoing pain, visible scars, and indeed some open veins. The significance of today's event represents more than just a commemoration. It is a powerful testament of the accommodating spirit and resilience of Asaba people. I dare say that it is providential that we have in our times our royal father, the Asaba, who himself is a living history and a living legend of the Ahaba experience through difficult times. Agunwani, his consort, an indomitable spirit, offered unalloyed support from the home front. As a point of departure, I want to place this remembrance event in a wider context, history, geopolitics, and perhaps culture. Because I do not believe the massacre can be viewed in isolation. It is often said that history is never an alien to crisis. Yes, indeed, history is essential to understanding the world around us. In human history, even before sovereign territorial boundaries were delineated with the Treaty of Westphalia in 1648, communities engaged in the most ferocious, tragic conflicts ever recorded. World history is riddled with massacres. In our times, the nature of conflicts have shifted from interstate to intrastate, without clear rules of engagement. Under these conditions, massacres and indescribable atrocities have taken place in theaters of conflict. Oftentimes, the root causes are never addressed, Instead, they remain hidden sources of future conflicts. Whatever the strategic considerations for that operation, the Asaba Massacre must not constitute for us a relic of history. It must become living history, shaped by the people of Asaba and those who share their values of humanity, civility, and responsibility. And so we must avoid the temptation to fall into despair, studiously awaiting a humanistic admission of guilt. Even in our private lives, apologies do not necessarily happen because we expect them. You cannot elicit an apology. There must be a clear perception of the problem and, more significantly, a contrite heart. As survivors, with a shared responsibility to immortalize our dead, it is time to be strategic, not emotional. The strength of the human spirit is enormous. We must learn to put our virtues and values into practice. It is our responsibility for us, the living, to commit and rededicate our lives to the finest values, ideals, and the principles of that our fathers and mothers represented. We must reinforce our virtue-driven society with new thinking. Asaba must not shirk from its responsibility as builder. We have made remarkable contributions before Nigeria became a sovereign nation. We have made outstanding contributions since independence. We are still giving all our best in the service of country and humanity. If I may pose a critical question, is there a lesson or lessons from the historical experience of the Asaba Massacre that we must be desperate to learn now? I will say unequivocally yes. The lesson is a study in remembrance, a study in memorialization. I believe that memory is the mother of all wisdom. It holds the key to how we shape the future, not through revisionist perspectives, but through a genuine understanding of the raison d'etre of the object and reason of remembrance. Asaba needs a unified, resolute stance, determined to bring good out of disaster. Asaba requires a new climate where the citizen essentially becomes an instrument of remembrance. A new consciousness, a new awakening, that recognizes that remembrance must be linked to positive action or it loses its essence. Positive action must also be all-encompassing. Special attention must be given to the role of women. Imagine what it was like for women following the massacre. We must remember their indomitable spirit, their resilience, enormous sacrifices that they made, and their courage and strength. Like Winston Churchill, they offered their blood, toil, tears, and sweat in the service of their community. I want to state unequivocally that indeed, patience is perhaps the best way to encapsulate the intervening 54 years since the massacre. We must now move beyond that to inspire a new generation, inspire new thinking on how to harness our strengths, our energies, and skills to help build the good society. I expect the symposium that follows on the heels of this event will address as appropriate the critical importance of oral documentation and oral history. And indeed, research is critical areas of study relevant to the advancement of the community. I must emphasize that memorialization reminds us that those who forget history will invariably repeat it. The concept of never again is a phrase that we are all familiar with following the Holocaust. In Asaba dialect, the word is Ozoemezina. It encapsulates the idea of remembrance. The duty to remember is an obligation for all of us. It is our shared responsibility. It is our collective interest, the survival and progress of our people. The friends and citizens of Asaba, united by the bonds of our stated goal, can really serve us as a light on the hill. These remarks may be regarded as a preface to a book written entirely from the perspectives and experiences of citizens of Asaba. This is also a collective task worth pursuing. Let me end with the poetry of the Greek poet Aeschylus. on the wisdom that inevitably flows from pain. Even in our sleep, pain which cannot forget falls drop by drop upon the heart, until in our own despair, against our will, comes wisdom through the awful grace of God. May God sustain us. Her Highness, Her Excellency, Professor Joy Ogu, October 7, 2021.